In today's video, the aim is to introduce you guys to miniature wargaming. So whether you're brand new, maybe you're coming back to it after so many years, maybe you're looking for a new game and you want some new tips or ideas or any of that stuff. We're going to go through games, the mechanics, the settings they're in, best ways to get into games, best games to get into of those genres, all of that stuff. Everything you need to know before deciding which game to get into. So in this video, we're going to start with, I think maybe the easiest way, which would be 3D printing. Now, if you don't have a 3D printer, don't fret. However, if you were looking at getting one, or maybe you've got one for something else, I think some people forget that 3D printers aren't just for miniature gamers, although a lot of the time they end up being. So in this case, if you've already got one, you just need to buy the STL files so you can find them online. People create miniatures, you can just print them. If you've already got the printer, even if you don't, it's going to be couple of £100, maybe something to, then you need devices to clean the resin properly in your miniatures. So yeah, you're gonna have a small investment to start with, but once you've got that, you're gonna pay a couple of quid, maybe more if it's a really nice miniature, and you are set. You can build your army yourself, print it, find the ones that you want. If you have any experience creating the miniatures, you can do that. You can either do it via building with clay and scanning it, or doing it virtually, which I think a lot of people do these days. Now, these are more skills that you need to learn. So if you don't want to do that, you can just buy 3D printed miniatures. There's a ton of places online, stuff like Etsy. There's a ton of specific ones for different games, like in Middle-earth. I know there's a few options which I'll flash up on screen. I've used them a few times, but I can't remember the name right now. I've actually got some of the stuff. I don't know if you'll be able to see that properly. I'll do a close-up, but yeah, they do some lovely stuff that fits in perfect. So if you can find 3D companies that work within your game, even better. Also, the easiest way, it's going to work out, it probably honestly works out cheaper, because that troll I showed you, I paid £4 for it, which is unbelievable value, where you think a troll from Games Workshop's probably going to run you like £30. It's honestly a no-brainer. It looks as good. Once you've painted it up, you'd hardly know it was a 3D print. I know there's some worry of the quality, so be careful which ones you pick. Like I said, if you can use a reputable company or a company that you know are in the community and they've printed a few things and they're working specifically on your game, it's definitely the route to go. However, if you want to veer away from the hobby side at all, so you don't want to have to paint anything, you just want to get miniatures, get them to the table and get playing, then you probably want to look at some other games. So there's a few specific ones that jump out to me. Personally, I'd recommend something like HeroClix. So it's less of like a war game, more of a small skirmish game between superheroes, but there's so many fun and interesting combinations. So not only do you get to pit Marvel versus DC, you get Gears of War, Street Fighter, you get Star Trek, Yu-Gi-Oh! There is so many collaborations in this game, and it's just the fun of mixing together Scooby-Doo and Superman versus Dark Magician and WWE star Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. There are just so many cool combinations. It's a lot of fun. It's more of a collectible game, so you get blind booster packs, which, if you're into that type of thing, can be very alluring as well. Opening a mystery box of anything is always interesting. So when you know it's full of cool miniatures, then it's that extra bit spicy. I will say, if you look at like a game like Warhammer 40k, then expect that quality. For pre-painted stuff, you're going to be sorely disappointed. The quality is just not there in comparison. Obviously, it's mass-produced, so it's just not possible. But they are improving. HeroClix in particular have just improved over the years. If you want to look at other stuff, there's things like the Street Fighter miniature game, which is an absolutely brilliant game. It's more of like almost like a board game. And I would suggest board games in general. They don't all come painted, but some do. Stuff like Betrayal at House on the Hill have miniatures in them, but are less of a miniature game. Street Fighter is classed as a miniature game, so basically you pick your character and you're just going to duke it out. You play specials, play cards, roll dice, but also you get to do stuff on your opponent's turn, which I think is a crucial thing in any miniature game. You don't want to feel like on your turn you're just sat there taking punishment. You want to deal some back, you want to try and counter your opponent. And in this game you get to do that via cards, special abilities, and it just feels very rewarding whether it's your turn or not. Now, my last and probably best suggestion, honestly, is buy pre-painted stuff. Now, this could be via just buying pre-painted armies on eBay, or I would say whatever game you're going to decide to pick up. I will talk about a few in this to hopefully give you some ideas, but whichever you decide, find a Facebook group for that. There is always a trade group attached, or you can find a separate trade group, but not only is it a great way of meeting other players and finding communities in your area, but you can also buy, sell, and trade armies. So if you don't want to paint stuff, you just want to play the games, this is going to be your best bet. Not only do you get good prices because it's not been specifically built, painted, and tailored to you, so commission paint is going to be slightly more expensive, but for a much better result in most cases. Buying pre-painted armies might be the way to go, but the other alternative is commission painting. Now, again, each community will have commission painters that specifically work in that community. You don't necessarily have to use them, but they have a good idea of color schemes and characters and all of that stuff. It's just finding the commission painters. Obviously, there is a ton out there. I play Middle-earth as my main game, and you have people like, even like YouTubers like JMax Armies, Jack from, I think his page is something like Melton Community. He does fantastic work, he offers commission painting. So within each game, as I say, there are standout commission painters, so just find them. It's going to be slightly more expensive than buying a pre-painted army, because as I say, they're going to paint your stuff for you, you're going to choose what you want. Where a pre-painted army, you're just going to have to buy what they're selling. So it depends. The quality you want them painted, what you want painted is how you're going to have to deal with that one. My other suggestion would be Fiverr. I did it on a video recently, which I'll flick up here somewhere. But not only do you get your miniatures painted commission, it's also very cheap. So obviously, again, it's not going to be the quality of some of those higher miniature painters. Maybe charge around £8 to £10 a miniature, which I think is very reasonable for the time spent. Fiverr, as it would suggest, is normally around or under a fiver, so I've spent anywhere between £2 to £4 and got okay results, pretty good results I'm very happy with. I'm an okay painter, I would say slightly better than tabletop standard. Depending what you class as tabletop standard, I think I'm happy with mine, and I think that's an important thing as a painter. Be happy with what you can achieve. I know I can't paint incredibly. I know I'm not going to win any competitions. So sometimes I have my stuff commission painted, and there's nothing wrong with that. There is no drawback, honestly. The only thing I would say, don't enter them into any painting competitions, because at tournaments they tend to have that kind of thing. But obviously if you didn't paint them, you don't want to be winning awards for them. But yeah, other than that, no real drawbacks. And it's a great way to get you playing if you don't want to spend the time on the hobby stuff. Now, for a lot of you, if you're looking at miniature wargaming, you're probably excited about the hobby stuff. You want to build your own things, you want to paint them up, you want to get them to the table. And I do think if you're just getting into it, I would say go down this route just because it is so rewarding. As you can see behind me, I've got countless armies. Some have been painted, stuff I brought from eBay, some have been commission painted, but the vast majority is stuff I've painted for myself. And eventually getting that miniature onto the table, having these wars, living out these stories with them is so rewarding. It's something I would recommend to anyone to try out. So if you're thinking about getting into it, I would say go this route. So I'm going to talk about in this section some popular games that you can get into for different settings, because I think that is the first decision you need to make. Do you want to play a sci-fi game, a historical game, a fantasy game? Because there are going to be very different options. Whichever game you choose, I would say also pair that with an agnostic game. So what I mean by that is a game that can use any miniatures. So recently I played The Doomed, which is a great example of that. You can just use any miniatures. It has a rule set to fit literally anything you want to play. Another good example would be Pulp. Pulp TV, 7TV. I'm not sure the actual, I think it's 7TV. I played that for the first time recently, and that was incredible. One that I've just bought more and more stuff to, got all the rules and stuff ready to go. So I will be bringing a video of that to the channel at some point. I'm also doing a top 10 miniature games. So in this section, I'm going to be briefly talking about them. I will go more in depth in a few weeks. So if you do want to see that, make sure you are subscribed. If this video has any help to you, or maybe you've seen my other videos, maybe you've been a subscriber for a while, there is a Patreon link down below to help support the channel, meaning I can do some bigger and cooler things and hopefully improve on the match reports I've been doing so far. I do want to go a little bigger on those, hopefully get to some events, but all of that would help massively. But it's not required in any way. If you're enjoying the video or it has been any help, a like and subscribe is a massive help, and I really do appreciate it. I appreciate you watching to this point if not. But let's keep on with the video, let's not get sidetracked. So for historical, the only one I've played a couple. So one is What a Tanker, so it's a bit of fun. You're basically just a tank. See, they are historical tanks, but you're driving them around, smashing into each other, firing shots. It's a ton of fun. The only other one is Bolt Action, which I think is a fantastic game. It's not one that I've bought into yet. I've played it more times than I've played some of my miniature games, but I still don't own any miniatures for it other than, we've got like a Dad's Army pack, which is really cool. And I will be painting that up and doing some cool stuff. Hopefully with that and 7TV at some point on the channel. If you're into sci-fi, we'll get into Games Workshop stuff in the next section because that's its whole different beast. I would suggest Star Wars Legion. There's other things like, I think it's called Apocalypse, where you're giant monsters smashing around cities. There's mech things where you can build these brilliant giant robots and smash around, again, smash around cities. Smashing up cities sure is funny. But Star Wars Legion for me is up there. Obviously, I've played it for a while. It's not one I play anymore. I just had to thin down my collection. I honestly do regret getting rid of it. I think it's a fantastic game. And even now, if someone was like, do you want to come to a tournament for it and had a spare army, I would 100% snap my hand off and go along. It is one of the best rule sets in miniature gaming. As I've already mentioned in this video, you can do stuff on your opponent's turn. You've got tokens and cards which let you react to things. It's got some of the most gorgeous miniatures. I'm a massive fan of Star Wars, so that's a great sci-fi alternative. If we're talking fantasy, again, obviously Age of Sigmar we will talk about, Middle-earth we will talk about. A lot of my favorite fantasy games we'll get onto. Another one I would recommend is A Song of Ice and Fire though, so I'll do some close-ups, but I got a ton of it over there. If you enjoyed the Game of Thrones series, if you like in House of the Dragon, all of this stuff is brought over in this game, so you can play these brilliant wars full of characters, so you get trays full of characters. It's a rank and flank game. Again, it's just such a great rule set. You've got tokens to react to stuff, you can heal. There's a tactics board, which is very unique. And not only does it fit the theme of the series and works perfectly in this game, just mechanically, it's just so interesting. There's so many different things you can do with it, and certain characters combo with it, like Cersei. Obviously not going to be on the battlefield fighting. Maybe she sends a threat to some of the Stark warriors and they flee the battlefield. It's just stuff like that. Really makes it a unique game. So I would recommend that if you're looking for fantasy. Rank and flank, very different though. You don't need all of the terrain. So it probably is a great starting point if you're looking to get into the game. And there's going to be enough painting up your army and other stuff, so maybe you don't want any terrain, that might be the game for you. As I mentioned, pick up an agnostic game though, and the reason I say that is, you're going to get into this and you're going to pick up so many miniatures, you're going to keep buying them. You think you're just going to stick with one army, and then it's a few months later and you've got 3, 4, 5 armies on the go. Maybe you stop playing a game and move into a different one. Those miniatures can be used in agnostic games because they can use any miniatures. I've already mentioned stuff like 7TV. Another good one I would say, which I've only picked up recently, I'm going to be playing a lot more of it. I want to do some stuff on the channel with it, but Don't Look Back. Now this one a little more specific. It is a horror game in which there is a killer and you're trying to escape them, but you can make a lot of stuff work. Like I've got aliens from 40k, which I'm going to build a plot around. They can still be the killers. Makes it slightly more interesting. There is a built-in system so you can build your own characters, killer and plot. But honestly, there is hundreds and thousands of different options. You can look online, there's websites where you can find countless games. You can really get down a rabbit hole in this one, but I do think that type of game is good to have, just so you can always use any miniatures. Maybe you see a cool one online, but it doesn't quite fit your army. Buy it, play it in this system, so you get to use it and it's not just sat on your shelf. Because as I say, you're going to be buying miniature after miniature. Actually, this is a challenge for you in the comments below. If you've had one army for 5 years plus, so it's got to be over 5 years, be honest, don't lie. I mean, I've got no way of checking, so you could absolutely lie. But if you've played a game, a miniature war game, and you've kept the same army for over 5 years, not buying any other armies, you've stuck with one, let me know in the comments below and I'll send you out a set of channel dice, because it's very rare, if ever, do you hear about that kind of restraint. I could absolutely not do it. You can see behind me, that is a portion of my Lord of the Rings stuff. I'm absolutely obsessed. I've probably got an army for at least like 10 to 15 different armies now. It's getting a bit out of hand, and that's not even counting my other stuff. I've got Walking Dead over here. I've got A Song of Ice and Fire. I've got Blood Bowl down the bottom. I've got things spread across this room. And this is what I mean. It is a rabbit hole. So be wary. And maybe this is a challenge to you in this video. If you're just getting started, come back in 5 years. Let me know if you've made it. If you've kept that one army, you're a wiser man than me. But we've touched on some of the, oh, no, hold on, I almost forgot. I've got some miniatures sat over here. For that reason, another game I want to recommend, as it's right up there. So there's actually two, because I did just mention Blood Bowl, which is technically Games Workshop, but it's basically a sports game. So it's very different to anything else you're going to play. There's a lot of silliness. You get to knock people into the crowd, and maybe they're injured or ragdolled. Maybe you stamp on someone when the ref's not looking. You get to play these amazing races of gnomes, orcs, trolls. There's just so much cool stuff. There's undead, which I'm currently painting up. There's just a lot of fun stuff in a very different game. You also get to do some of the team management, and that's also very unique. But the game I wanted to touch on before we go into Games Workshop is The Walking Dead All Out War. Now, this is a very small game in general. Normally you only get two to four characters, I would say. Obviously you can play any points, but that's just the more common play style. You're around a very small map, but the map is not only filled with your opponent, but also walkers. So as you're moving around, maybe you attract their attention. If you fire a gun, a ton of them are going to try and swarm you. Maybe you try and get an objective, but you pick it up and it's been booby-trapped by the enemy and it explodes and causes all this havoc, and all these sounds are slowly taking up the threat meter, and things are getting more and more difficult as more and more zombies flood the field. It is dripping with tension. It is one of my favorite miniature games. As I say, I'll probably put it in like second place. It is just such a fun game, such a unique game. You get a ton of different characters. You get the Whisperers. If you're a fan of The Walking Dead, you get like all of the new stuff with, you get the Kingdom, Hilltop, anything that's been in Walking Dead. Mantic have recently brought this game back, so they're releasing new stuff. I'm so excited for this one. I thought I should throw that in there as it's one of my favorites, but let's talk about the elephant in the room, Games Workshop miniature games. Now, they are top quality miniatures, but they are also top quality prices. So if you're looking to get into this, you're probably gonna have to spend a little bit more than those other games. There are a few entries though. So if you're looking at 40K, there's things like Combat Patrol, Kill Team, there's Necromunda, there's a few different games. There's even discontinued ones like Mordheim, which are very popular. More on the fantasy side though. If you're looking to get into the game and wanna move into the bigger 40K, I would say Kill Team is a way to go. That's just a condensed version. Basically, you play with less points, but it is very much the same rule set. If you're looking for a skirmish version, so a much smaller version, much smaller armies, you just buy a box and that's all you need. You haven't got to spend hundreds afterwards. Combat Patrol is the one. If you're looking at a more fantasy version, then Age of Sigmar recently did Spearhead, which I have, I've so much restraint that I've not bought it yet. I don't know anyone that plays it. So even if I bought it, I would have to find somewhere to play it, which I think is another good point. Make sure your area has players for the game you want to play, because you don't want to pick up an army, paint it, go to your local and nobody else plays it. Obviously you can travel, you can go to tournaments, which is what I'm doing with Middle-earth now, but maybe it's worth asking locally, or like I say, in those Facebook groups, to find who's playing it first. So once you're ready, you can jump straight into a game. But yeah, Spearhead, I've seen some battle reports. I've looked through the armies countless times now. I think I'm gonna go the vampire ones, the Gravelords or something like that. I've not played Age of Sigmar. I've played a little 40K, so it is a very new and interesting step for me. The miniatures are absolutely gorgeous. And as I say, play something like Spearhead, Combat Patrol, very different to the actual game, but it is a very small skirmish game in which you buy a box and you are ready to go. However, if you're looking for that more expansive experience and you want to move into those bigger war games, then you do need something like Kill Team, which is going to introduce you to 40K in a much better way. Now, I wouldn't be doing my job if I spoke about Games Workshop and didn't touch on the best miniature game of all time. Slightly biased, but that is Middle-earth strategy battle game. Now, I'm a massive Tolkien nerd. I absolutely adore The Hobbit, Lord of the Rings. A game I played in college. I played with a few friends. We painted them up. I've actually still got the miniatures, so I'll flash them up on screen. They are pretty much just dipped in paint. We had no idea what we were doing. We had a board, we rolled some dice, we had all the rules. I've still actually got the rules as well, which is kind of cool. But that game has stuck with me. We played it for a few years. We stopped playing miniature games and I only recently picked it up again. Well, you'll be able to see the video on the channel. It was probably like a year before that. So I would say maybe the last 5 years. I've only really got into it over the last year. I've made a conscious effort to play it a lot more because I was jumping from miniature game to miniature game, which is never good. But it is good because you have so many miniatures. And as we spoke about, I've got a few agnostic games where those miniatures are perfect for. So my points do work. I do live by these points I'm giving you. Hopefully they are helpful. Yeah, as I say though, conscious point to play it more. I joined a slow grow league, which if you're looking to get into a game is perfect. If you don't know how that works, basically it's a month one, we're playing 500 points. So I have to build and paint up 500 points. So I did that with Mordor. Month 2, 600, so you just have to build up 100 more. So it slowly increases every month, meaning your task is to build and paint 100 points each month, which I don't think is too much to ask, but it also means that you're keeping in the hobby, you're keeping going, you have a target, and you're just increasing every month. We're currently on 700, it's about to go into 800, and I'm ahead of myself now. I've got a ton of stuff painted up, I am ready to go. I'm absolutely loving it. I've booked onto 2 events this year and a few more for next. There's a new edition coming out soon, well, sort of a new edition, which I'm going to be doing a ton of scenarios and other things with. So if you want to see any of that, make sure you are subscribed for Middle Earth stuff, because as I say, that is my passion, and if I could recommend a game to you, it would be that. Not only because I love everything Tolkien, which if you do, you're going to love that game. It's got the best characters, the best stories for me. The game mechanics itself are perfect. Well, perfect's a stretch, near perfect. They're very good. They include a lot of stuff that makes very small but impactful moments. For example, you can try and jump over a wall and collapse the other side. You can drown, you can try and swim, you can climb things and fall. Monsters can pick you up and hurl you across the battlefield. There's so many small things that make this a very unique, very cinematic and very fun experience. And I think, although it is very competitive as well, because of all those moments and making it more narrative, the community is just, it's like nothing I've seen. This is the best community. First and foremost, everyone is trying to have a good time. And this rule set, like I say, with these small moments, these silly moments, really reinforces that. But that's my video. Hopefully you found something useful in here. Hopefully you've got some ideas on what games to try or ways to get into those games. I will be doing more videos on sort of tools and painting and other stuff and tips for you to get into the game. As I say, feel free to leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed it. Let me know which game you decided to get into in the comments below. Any of you have kept an army for that long, again, let me know and I will send something out to you. If you've got any questions, drop them below. That's all I've got for this one though. So if you've made it to this point in the video, thank you so much for watching and I will catch you in the next one.